Yeah, Chrono Trigger. It's one of the fucking games, man.
It's one of the fucking games. You know it. I know it.
Everyone knows it. It's fucking Chrono Trigger, man. What is the list of the fucking games if we were to construct a Pat Finnerty style list for video games?
Oof. Super Mario 64.
Oh, Evie, you're muted.
Tetris.
Yeah, Tetris. Super Mario 64 is probably another good one.
Yeah.
Chrono Trigger is a good one.
Yeah.
We all know you can't just say Tetris.
Yeah, I can.
Yeah. If we're talking about one of the fucking games, it would be like just...
Doesn't fucking matter. Tetris.
It doesn't matter.
There are
Tetris.
bad Tetris's.
Tetris doesn't count as a Tetris.
We're talking about Tetris.
Sextris doesn't
Tetris.
count
Are we
as a
talking
Tetris.
about Tetris?
We're not talking about Tetris 2. We're not talking about Tetris the Grandmaster.
We're not talking about Hatris. We're not talking
Are
about...
we talking old rules or new rules?
Doesn't matter.
We're
It's
talking
Tetris.
old... Yeah, specifically, we're talking about... Like, if we are getting into specifics, we are talking about Tetris for the Game Boy / Nintendo Entertainment System.
Yeah.
Is what we're talking about.
That's the one that they took the picture of Hillary Clinton playing on fucking Air Force One or whatever. That's the one that your mom played.
Oh shit, it's getting spicy.
The one that your mom played non-derogatory.
Yeah, I didn't want to say my mom played, even though that is
then
also
Parental
true.
Floss made a song pointing it out, you know.
Trying to think other ones of the fucking games.
Oh man.
So, like...
Halo?
Yeah, Halo.
Halo's one of the fucking games. Yeah.
There's like fucking 70 Tetris games.
Yeah. But, like, they're all Tetris.
Yeah, you're missing the point, which is that it's Tetris. You show a person a screenshot of most Tetrises, and they're gonna be like, yeah, it's fucking Tetris.
Yeah.
How would you rate the McDonald's nugget Tetris?
You're getting lost in a fucking sauce. You have too wide of a scope going on. We're talking about one of the fucking games of all time.
Here's the thing that's interesting about the Pat Finnerty concept of the fucking songs, is that it's like they're not necessarily like good songs, but they have like extremely broad penetration, where it's like, you know, people don't know the words to Country Roads Take Me Home, generally speaking, but they know like that part of it.
Yeah, exactly. And also it ends up being the actual quality of the song, like you're saying, doesn't really factor in. Like, there are good songs that are part of it's one of the fucking songs, but there are definitely bad songs that are some of the fucking songs.
And that's
like
why Call of Duty is one of the fucking games.
Yeah, that's fair. Does that mean Madden is one of the fucking games?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay.
Yep.
Well, I don't know, because like when we're talking about...
you would say Myst.
What do you mean? No.
Myst was massively popular during its time.
You gotta consider, I'm not a Myst head. Like, it's never been my fucking wheelhouse.
This isn't
I genuinely don't know.
We just said this isn't about...
Well, I don't... I'm saying I don't... As someone who's never looked into Myst or like people's relation...
CDI
Zelda. Like, it's
people know what that is,
but I wouldn't. I don't know if I would say
people didn't play the example of Country Road. No one's played those games.
Listen, I want to shove Jet Set in there, and that doesn't even qualify.
Bridget, I think that is exactly the thing. Is I think for it to be one of the fucking games, people had to have played it.
Yeah, it needs to be an inescapable truth of the genre.
Like, I would say that Zelda, generally speaking, is one of the games, but like the CDI Zeldas are like a fun...
Let's say Link to the Past.
No, I wouldn't say it, because everyone has like their first Zelda that they play, and it's not usually, it's not always Link.
And like
to
a
the
Mario,
past.
Most Nintendo games are on the list of the fucking games.
Sure, yeah, they kind of like, you know.
Is Metroid one of the fucking games?
100%.
I don't know that it's one of the fucking games, because I think that is like, in the same way that I wouldn't say Star Fox is one of the fucking games, that's when you start getting into like Nintendo stuff that not necessarily everyone plays.
Unlike Star Fox, Metroid is something that has existed and continued to release things up to this day, pretty much.
Barely.
It is a solid portion.
Metroid is a thing that has kind of hobbled its way continuously through gaming history.
I feel like it was a major
more than
thing.
say an F-Zero. We'll give Metroid
That's
back.
true too, yeah.
Metroid is third or fourth from the bottom. Very bottom is Star Fox or F-Zero, one of those two, and then those are interchangeable.
I think
for
Star Fox
the
is
first...
higher than F-Zero.
Yeah.
I don't
Very
know.
bottom is stuff like
respectfully-
Famicom Mystery Club.
I respectfully,
sure.
I'm just gonna say for the sake of record, I respectfully disagree, and I believe that Metroid's one of the fucking games.
That's fair.
For sure.
Everyone knows it, everyone loves it.
Yeah. Roblox, Minecraft. Those are some of the fucking games.
Yeah. If they're not in there yet, then
Great.
they will be.
Oh,
It'll be like the recording of me burping.
As you say Fortnite.
Oh my god.
Crash Bandicoot? No.
Maybe a little niche.
Yeah,
Metal Gear Solid. Is Metal Gear Solid one of the fucking games?
Yeah. That had one of those levels of cultural depth to
I
it.
would
The
say
influence,
it is.
its moment in time.
It's one of those ones that I'm not 100% sure
I feel
on.
like it's.
I'm not
I feel like
either,
it's on
but
its cusp. I feel like it needs to have a.
That's a say it ain't so type thing. There are chances that some people have not heard "Say It Ain't So" by Weezer, but once you've heard it, you're like, oh yeah, it's that. That's one of the fucking songs.
Doesn't
That's the one
have
that's
Norman
wow.
And every game would be made better with Norman Peters.
Yeah.
Just having a conniption
Conniption
over
as
you in the
as
sky.
you try to piss in the sky.
Basically doing the Sonic Knuckles jump thing, but with peeing. Yeah.
Ziggy. I like when Ziggy does the Love Live opening face where it's like in the corner.
I don't know what that means.
He's just trying to get in there. Just hey, I'm on the camera.
Love Live, it's one of the fucking animes.
Love Live is not one of the fucking
it really
animes.
isn't. It is.
That's its own conversation.
Yeah, that's its own
to
entire
have.
can of worms.
One could say it correlates more to the subject matter of today's episode and put it on the list.
Yes.
But it's,
Pokemon's definitely one of the fucking games.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
that's the thing. I didn't want to just list off Nintendo ones. I'm trying to think of other is Sonic is probably one of the fucking games.
Yeah.
Is Time Crisis one of the fucking
No.
games?
No.
No.
Very particular arcade shooter.
I feel
That's
like
no Mario.
I feel
That's-
like as an arcade game, that is one of the fucking games.
It's too specific.
Yeah, I don't. That's hopeful thinking.
Okay. Oh, Guitar Hero.
Yeah. Well, and that leads into playing a lot of some of the songs. So, really, that if the fucking songs are on the fucking
Say
game,
it's what
that's where the dimensions
short
live.
shelf life.
I don't think so. If you look at the legacy of American-made or rhythm games, Guitar Hero is one of the fucking games that in some way everyone interfaced with.
Yeah,
In a
I
time period, though.
Yeah, I think it's a lot like Myst, where Myst was huge for a specific period of time, but it that time ended, and there are moms all across the country, if not the world, where you ask them, hey, did you play Myst? They're just yeah, I really like Myst.
That's
there are
part of
people
the
our
reason why
age
I
who
do-
are just yeah, Guitar Hero, that was a hell of a thing, wasn't it?
However,
I think
Guitar
that-
Hero is not having a VR release.
Here's the thing that I would argue is I feel if it's not a thing that kind of perpetuated across time, I don't know that it quite qualifies as one of the fucking games.
What about Rez? No?
Res is absolutely not one of the fucking games.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I think Guitar Hero was like one of those things that could have been one of the fucking games, but like it just burned out, and it didn't have quite enough. It wasn't, kind of accessible to people in a mainstream sense enough for it to like persist in the mind of people like something like Myst does.
That's fair.
Get hyped for the Raven remake.
Doom is one of the fucking games of all time.
Oh,
probably.
yeah.
Oh,
yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
Absolutely Doom's
Anyways,
one of the fucking games.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, everyone.
And welcome.
Welcome to this superfluous talk on whatever this is.
What reviews connected by cast or crew, deciding the next film, that's the gist. Put it on the list.
Welcome to Put It on the List. The bi-weekly movie podcast where every week one of us in the circle picks a movie. Oh, get that crack on that soda. Let's hear it. It didn't come through on my side.
Discord
I have to wait
ate
for
it.
the edit.
I got it. I got
Damn it,
it.
nothing.
Anyways, the bi-weekly film discussion podcast.
You'll hear it back in recording.
It's a little gift for when you're editing it, and for people at home hearing it now, when they're going like, oh, yeah.
Cracking open a cold with the
film-
gals.
The bi-weekly film discussion podcast. Where every
Stop speech jamming her.
where every episode one person in the rotation picks out a film, and then the next episode the next person in the rotation has to connect their choice by either cast or crew. Last time on Put It on the List, we watched As Decided by the Wheel, The Big Lebowski, and this time around, as picked by Bridget, connected by voice actors, we are discussing Patlabor 2, the movie, directed by Mamoru Oshii. I guess we introduce ourselves in the order again. First up in the rotation is
Bridget, that's you.
Oh, right, because I thought the wheel counted somebody else, but I guess...
No, it didn't. That
Nope.
was the
That-
audience
we've
pick,
just-
essentially.
The wheel is really unavailable. The wheel is like the Zordon of like our whole thing. It's
Put
not.
the Big Lebowski
She did put
on
the Big
I guess
Lebowski
I'm
on it.
Fuck, just introduce yourself, Bridget, for fuck's sake.
Hey, I'm Bridget.
Okay.
I love that Discord ate that. And also we have...
I'm Evie.
And we have...
And I'm Bree.
And I'm Jay. And I guess let's go around and check how everyone's been. It's been a weird couple of weeks because a video game news publication, both nearly collapsed under corporate leadership, and then the people that were actually like making the content on it bought themselves like in Giant Bomb. And that's its own discussion that we could get bogged down in. Like,
Polygon
do
is
we
still
want to
dead.
talk? Oh yeah, Polygon is still very much dead.
It's the sort of thing
Do
where
we
it's
want to talk about?
yeah, kind of, because it's kind of like any random person could be listening to this podcast and be like, what the fuck? Why does that? What does that have to do with any of y'all? Because you just talk about movies on a podcast. And it's just like, I don't know. It's weird because
Go ahead. What are you guys?
Yeah, it's weird to consider how much, like, even while I wasn't like actively following Giant Bomb, it's just good to know that it was kind of around doing stuff. And so the idea that it kind of like it finally died was a bummer.
Like as an independent podcast in and of ourselves, seeing something that like started off as an independent, source of like news media on the internet, to have it go through the journey that it did and then just eventually fucking nearly die because of corporate overlordship over them, like, was a deeply sad prospect.
I don't know about you, but I take comfort in the fact that Giant Bomb's out there doing its thing. And I hear there's a brand new wave of Giant Bomb coming. And I guess that's just the way that life perpetuates itself, Well, I guess I've just gone on rambling again.
You make a joke of it, but very genuinely, like Evie was saying, there is like a comfort in knowing that Giant Bomb has kind of always managed to trundle along through the landscape.
They came full circle and they finally own themselves again.
And arguably they've been such an influential presence on the internet that like us as a like weird little conglomeration would not exist like we do without their presence.
Sure.
In our lives. So like it's good that they are now independently owned.
Yeah.
From
Good
the same
things
people
can
who
happen.
gave us Poop City Slamma Jamma.
Oh god. No.
Need we remember. Yeah.
I never want to think about the Poop City Slam.
Honestly,
Jam.
Help I'm an Abomination will forever be my favorite bit.
I mean, it's great.
It's like...
Kill me!
Murder me! Ah!
There's hours upon hours of stuff you can find on the internet.
The pulling stuff out from under the table bit. There are so many gems.
You can listen to part 2. You can watch part 2 of my Castlevania 64 playthrough, in which half of the runtime is talking about giant bombs shutting down.
Yeah, and then literally literally a week after that, they make that announcement at PAX, and you know, good. Like Bree said, good things can happen.
Yeah.
It's a nice little minuscule ray of light to come through in the landscape we live in.
As I sometimes do reference, finally, some good fucking news.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's great.
So yeah, that's to briefly touch on that stuff. How's everyone been the last couple of weeks? Do we want to go around, see what people have been up to, what people have been experiencing out there? Bridget, you got anything you want to talk about?
Nothing too crazy on the anime side, but I've been playing a stable of video games, as they say. I've been plugging away at Dungeons of Blood and Dream, which is a weird PlayStation 1 style, at least graphic wise.
Oh, that thing.
Dungeon or roguelike game where you're a blood wizard who looks like a frog.
One of those games that just makes you feel gross while you play it.
Yeah, it's a weird vibe. It's not quite the levels of like Cruelty Squad, but it's definitely got a similar-ish vibe. I've also been playing Banjo-Kazooie, the Nostalgia 64 thing that came out recently.
A very interesting juxtaposition to a video game that came out last year. A little known indie title by the name of Astrobot. to kind of compare those two, where, you know, you have Astrobot, which is very much a corporate love letter, let's say.
A corporation writing a love letter to itself.
Yeah. For the dozens of studios that have shut down.
Yeah.
I will say, I can control Astrobot a lot better. I've not particularly played Banjo-Kazooie, so I can't say the controls are super admiring to me, but...
No. Yeah, Banjo-Kazooie is a charming little thing, but it's not the best 3D platformer out there.
I found the dialogue bothered me too much to really get into it when I was a kid. My sister loved it.
You don't like the sound of...
It just bores into my skull. It becomes
love that
too much.
shit.
I think the writing is good. That's not the problem.
I'm sure it's fine. But
Yeah.
I just couldn't
When
get
she
into it.
says dialogue, she means the literal verbalizations that the characters make.
How about Glover, where it does the exact same thing, but one of the characters talks with burps and farts? Other than that, after I'm done with those activities, I'll get back to Nitro Plus's Armored Core game.
I was watching the trailer for that earlier, and I was like, this does not look very good.
It looks
From
a
what
little
I
chunky.
played, it actually is pretty... let me put it this way. It's a B game in a positive way.
Okay. it doesn't look like a B game that I would get into. Like, there's something about the way
you still need to
it
play
flows.
Armored Core.
I know I do. Didn't you sell your copy of it?
Yeah. Well, we just get it on Steam when it's, like, cheap.
But you already own it at that point. Like, what's the... Aren't you basically not... You're getting less money back when you sell it back, too, aren't you?
Or you could just do the PlayStation thing where despite its diminishing value, you sell it for a lot more. You know, with their systems.
Like, that's the weird thing, is like...
It was a PlayStation copy.
I know, like, well, Brie, yeah, she bought a PlayStation copy of it.
That's what I'm saying. Do the PlayStation thing and sell it for way more despite its diminishing quality.
Oh, you're making a joke about tariffs and stuff like that.
Not just tariffs, just the fact that everything costs way too much more and has never gone down in price for years in gaming. But anyway.
But yeah, so like it seems silly that for as much of a physical media person as you are, you will just play through a thing and then turn around and sell it.
It's because I don't physically keep games, because I already physically keep Blu-rays and stuff.
I mean, I guess I'm just so... The things that I bother to buy physical copies of are usually things that I'm like, no, this is one of my fucking things of all time.
I guess the difference here is, in a lot of cases, I will go back and watch something or watch something with friends. I typically, once I beat a game, I don't play it over again.
I am not that kind of person.
Once we get the streamer house, we can get some shelves.
Don't call it a streamer house.
Put it all in there.
Oh,
what's up, guys?
House?
Welcome to the media headquarters.
Live City Hype House.
Hell yeah.
Never, ever call it.
Who's Mama's little hype pig? Happy Mother's Day.
Oh, I hate it now. I hate it now.
Evie, what have you been up to? Do you have anything you want to talk about?
Say happy mom, happy birthing, happy unbirthing to you.
Is there anything you want to talk about, Evie? Pull the ripcord, get us out of here.
Okay.
I've been applying to jobs still and trying to...
I feel that.
So that's what that's been like.
Right up.
I don't know. I've also been gaming, been playing KOTOR 2. That game's fun.
Ooh, how's that? I've been oh sorry, you're still
Star Wars shit. Yeah, whatever. I guess it doesn't fucking matter.
Star Wars shit.
I'm just into fucking play. Anyway, listen.
I thought you
Keep talking. Do you want? Is there anything in particular with KOTOR that you want to touch on, or?
I don't know. It's interesting because it comes at it from a different perspective than the First Knights of the Old Republic is very much just like, hey, we're doing Star Wars again. And KOTOR 2 is a little bit more. It comes at the whole setting with a different perspective on things, and it's pretty neat.
Would you say it's akin to almost like extended universe type Star Wars stuff?
Oh yeah, it's explicitly that. And it just like is it is kind of interested in like what's the deal with this Force thing anyway?
Midichlorians. Let's talk about them.
They do not talk about midichlorians, thankfully.
Ah, damn it. I need to know what my blood sugar levels are.
Yeah, your magic blood sugar levels.
Does it add glub shitto?
It's just a crystal in the stick.
So-called free thinkers when someone mentions Star Wars.
Was Glub Shitto? I assume Glub Shitto is only alive in like.
No, he's not real. There's no Glub Shitto. Glub Shitto is fake. Glub Shitto is a fake character.
If Glub Shitto was real, and by I mean real in this fake space opera.
What are you asking?
I don't know. Are you asking which
in the
time
New
period?
Republic
He would
era?
look like
He
Watto.
would probably be alive in Darth Vader time.
What are you talking about? Anyway, I've been playing KOTOR.
I think she's trying to nail down where a character like Gulp Shitto would exist in the Star Wars timeline.
Well,
is what she's trying.
Whenever they would be from the planet of
Gulp
Gulliver,
Shitto,
they would
he's
absolutely
Doctor
talk and
Who. Is
farting
he a
and
time
belching,
wizard?
and that would be him.
No, she's saying that Glupshido can exist at any period in time because Glupshido just sounds like one of those little freaks that would exist and be present in all Star Wars.
Star Wars always has a fucking weird alien guy who could be named Glupshido. That's the whole point of the joke.
Like,
was the master
there's always like
of
a
Dark
lineage thing.
Plagueis.
You could have like Flumshido is like his child, and like he's in the later stuff. I don't know.
No, it's
really.
not,
Once they make the,
it's normally not named like like Cousin Lumpy doesn't like translate to Chewbacca.
well, I mean, there's like the Darths. You've got like the Solos.
Evie, do you regret bringing up Star Wars now?
Well, breathe.
Anyway,
Darth
we've
is
been
like
fully
you are.
We gotta
given
get
that
started.
name.
Let me tell everyone how I've been. We haven't even gotten into fucking icebreaker questions.
Hey, there's no shame here on me.
All right, so I've been
Also, I've been reading, but
VTuber.
whatever. Fuck it.
I've been illustrating things. I've been doing the whole I learned how to make cold brewed tea and not tea, cold brewed coffee. I learned how to make cold brewed coffee.
Word.
So that's been fun. That's been a fun little experiment.
Hey, Evie, let's cycle back to the book club thing because I've also been reading. What have you been reading lately?
Boy.
I've been reading Addiction by Design, which is a book about gambling machines by Natasha Schull, and it's very interesting when it comes to thinking about how video games are made or whatever. Okay, let's move on.
I want to talk about that for a brief moment just because of when we were watching the newest Gundam episode where you mentioned that before we started the episode, and literally that episode of Gundam starts with someone playing gambling games on their cell phone.
That is really
just
funny.
a real beautiful synchronicity of time there. I've been reading through. So I flew out to California last weekend to spread my dad's ashes in the ocean, and I decided at the airport while I was waiting for 2 hours for my flight, looking through the bookstore, and I was like, oh, hey, what will be a nice thing to cheer me up this weekend? Cormac McCarthy's Blood Meridian. So
I feel like you fucked up.
Light read,
Yeah, I feel like you fucked up by choosing to read a Cormac McCarthy novel as just
no, yeah. It was doomed from the start, much like the characters of Blood Meridian. Their fate was decided from the beginning of undertaking the journey. Good God, that fucking book! Have you read that book, Evie?
I have not.
No? Okay, it's fucking bleak. It's really, it comes with the territory of Cormac McCarthy, but good God, that's a bleak and violent story that at its core is just about, how America at its core is just this, at its deepest foundations and is based in bloodlust, greed, and malice, just from the top down.
Yep.
To give a little bit of background about it, it is loosely based on real events circling the Glanton gang, which was a group of I can't remember what the name of this type of group was, but basically between the Mexican-American War and the Civil War in the US, there were groups of people that were just, kind of continuing to engage in warfare along the American-Mexican border. And, they would sign contracts with cities or local governments that would basically be yeah, you bring us the scalps of Native Americans and we will pay you in gold. And
absolutely disgusting.
Oh, you have no idea. But yeah, I feel like there's a lot about the setting of that story, the events that are taking place in that story, the economy that story revolves around, that just kind of really cements into existence how tied up American identity and the ideology that operates under is to violence and genocide and bloodshed.
Sure.
It's You could argue it's also a biblical allegory in some way because it's very like Revelations, like visions of the apocalypse style writing by Cormac McCarthy, because he's very like stream of consciousness in the way that he constructs his prose and the like. But it's a rough read. A lot of things dying. I recounted a few of the scenes to Bree that I don't know if I want to say them on the podcast for the more sensitive listeners, but just a couple of the scenes that she heard and were like, oh my god.
Yeah, this book is not for me. I heard that and I was like, that's all I need to know that this would not be an enjoyable read for me.
Fantastic read so far. I'm like in the back third of it now at this point. Like, it's been worth reading, but it's a tough read. So that's what I've been up to.
Crush those babies.
No.
Well.
Oh, God. Well.
The hotter the
shall
butter,
we talk about the film?
happier the baby.
Huh? What was that, Bridget? On to icebreaker questions.
Icebreaker questions.
Okay, we got a few things here. We got some comments on YouTube videos here from new people on our YouTube channel.
Oh, nice.
Comment from Jay Strahan 9552 on our Tinker Tailor episode says, great commentary. There are so few discussions on this movie out there in the ether. Keep pumping out great content. Thank you.
Hashtag content. Hashtag the realm.
Hashtag brand safety. Hashtag content.
Brand safety.
And then a comment on the year one finale from a Noxus who says the thumbnail is a yee ass mishmash of different fandoms. LOL.
And you are correct.
Which is referring to the thumbnail that I made for that, which is basically like a quilt patchwork of like all the posters of the movies that we talked about last year. Moving on to... Oh my god, excuse me. Actually, there's one more comment. This isn't on YouTube. This is on our Blue Sky. Put it on the list.bsky.social. You could find us there and find us wherever all major podcasts are sold. From Dusty Stars, who says, damn it, I wanted a kaiju movie, but it turns out the kaiju in this movie was U.S. hegemony all along, in reference to Patlabor 2.
Yeah.
And Wealthy Aardvark, before saying before asking a question, says, "You're cool, hot, and funny too."
Aww.
Thank you. But Wealthy follows that up by asking, "Does ACAB include Patlabor pilots and staff?"
Yes.
I think
yes.
Yeah, the movie makes that clear.
I mean, I don't know.
Not the movie. The person who made the movie, I think,
yes,
made that clear.
Well,
Well, the thing is that like you could argue that the police in Japan have there's a different relationship when it comes to who has, a monopoly on force and all that kind of thing, and
one could say it's going to be pivotal to the discussion that we're going to have about the movie.
Yeah.
But you can continue what you're going to say. Sorry.
Yeah, but that's basically what it comes down to. It's just I would say, as someone who is, just broadly speaking, skeptical of power structures like the police, just the Patlabor, all cops are bastards, even the Patlabor anime cops. But I think there is some there's at least discussion to be had there.
Yeah, absolutely. We got that one off the list. Next question here is from Helvetica Standard, who says, long ago, I thank you by the way for the questions from Wealthy. Helvetica Standard, thank you for the question, asks, long ago I heard this movie recommended as one to watch when the world takes a bad turn, so I watched it a lot the last decade. Is there any media you guys break out to cope in that similar way?
Sailor Moon or El Hazard is a good little kind of nostalgic sort of get lost in that and not think about the world thing for me.
I mean, I feel like I've mentioned it before on the podcast, but Merry
I feel
Christmas,
like if
Mr.
you're rewatching Patlabor 2, you are thinking quite a bit.
I mean, I think there's things to be discussed there. That at that point you get into the discussion of what kind of media makes you feel good in those circumstances, because like my thing, I would say Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence is a thing that I kind of break out to like cope with the reality of the world when it's really bad. And that's not a very happy movie at all. That's in fact a very sad
Christmas.
But it's a sad movie.
I also love magical girl anime, and not the like ironic like, oh, it's actually a dark turn. Ooh, a YouTube video.
Irish.
No, it's like just like fucking friendship and love fixes everything. Good. I want that. Give me that now. I need that in my veins tomorrow, like yesterday.
She needs that in her veins, but it can't be a band. It has to be.
If I was a little anime girl in Japan, I too would fix things with friendship. Everything's fine. But yeah, that's that helps me as well. And yeah.
Evie, do you have any?
Generally, I don't like go to media like that to like if I'm trying to like self-soothe or anything. Like, if I'm feeling bad, I will, like I don't know, I go for, like, ego obliteration, where I will just, like, get locked in on, like, a game or something like that. I don't turn to media like that.
Fair enough.
You're less looking for any kind of emotional catharsis, but more like a literal, like, mechanical, like, stimulation thing that your brain can just get distracted by for a chunk of time.
That's fair.
That makes sense, yeah.
If I, like, I get catharsis by just, like, crying about it.
That does help.
Generally, yeah.
And when I just can't stand to hear or see anything, there's always good old-fashioned silence.
Just sit in the room and look at the wall for half an hour.
I've done that for hours.
So have I. All right.
Yeah.
Bridget, did you get one?
I mean, my comfort things is either to watch something terrible or play something terrible. I need to like feel something.
Make me feel it. Make me feel alive again.
Hurt me more!
I'm pretty sure back in the day, the entire reason I played through Super Mario Brothers Special the first time was be like, I just need something that is so fucking bad that I can only concentrate on this shitty ass thing.
So kind of similar to how Evie has her
Yes.
like mechanical things that she gets locked on. You need to get lost in something that is more bad in a literal quality sense, not bad as in an emotional sense.
Yeah. Although I similar to Eevee, except I don't think Eevee's booting up a bunch of Kusa gang going like, yeah, let me play this stuff.
I drew the distinction already. And then we have one last question here from Owen IRL. Thank you for the question, Owen, who says, The Big Lebowski and Pulp Fiction were shown a lot on TV here in the early 2000s, and I probably saw both of them close to a dozen times, but I would either catch it 20 to 50% in or get distracted and not watch the end. Are there any movies you have seen only in chunks or at least never to completion? I mean, I kind of said it on the Lebowski episode, but that was one of those movies for me, was The Big Lebowski. I need a moment to think of other ones that I have.
I might still not have seen Hot Fuzz all the way through.
Oh, I know one. Dogma.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like, you could go down a whole list of, like, movies that would air on Comedy Central in the early 2000s that, like, I would see a chunk of those and be like, that movie seems all right. I gotta go do something else right now, or I want to watch cartoons instead right now, so let me do that.
Yeah, it also doesn't help that, like, for censorship and for ad space, like, so much is taken out of the films that they become hard to follow often.
That probably also contributes to that sense that you've only seen, like, chunks of the movie as opposed to the actual film.
So there's a lot of things involved in that.
Yeah. Do either of you have one that you point to?
I feel like Dogma's the best example for me still, because just you catch it on cartoon or on Comedy Central, and it's just like, oh hey, it's those two guys.
Yeah.
And the one guy is just
Boy.
like, no ticket, like that other movie.
Did you say Bubble Boy?
Yeah. When I was growing up, they would play that on Comedy Central, and I kept coming in on it at like the halfway point, going like, "What the fuck is going on?"
Okay.
And then they'd play the dare 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 dare. I guess that this is growing up, and then he like makes up with people. And I'm like, I don't know what the catharsis is here because I didn't see the beginning, but cool, good for him. Yeah. Anyway, I don't know. That's what was. We had to watch what was on back then when we were. Yeah. Anyway.
Bridget, do you have one?
I mean, I don't have one, but I know for a fact whenever Inside Out is on, my dad has never seen the full movie because he keeps falling asleep whenever it's on. And so, actually, you want to know what the worst thing about that was?
What?
I still don't think he's seen it all the way through. And also, one time I was on a cruise with him, and he had it on the TV, and I guess he kept waking up in the middle of the night and rewinding it to. So I would wake up in the middle of the night, and it would always be the same scene, and I thought I was losing my fucking mind because
Imagining that is driving me insane. Yeah.
Would be the exact same point in the movie.
I feel like I slept for 5 seconds.
You're going through the endless 8 thing from Haruhi Suzumiya, except it's watching through the first half of Inside Out over and over again.
I would remember that happening sometimes when I would like fall asleep with like Adult Swim on, where they would do that thing where they had like, the East Coast block and the West Coast block.
Yes.
I would fall asleep during the East Coast block and then wake up like slightly before that point during the West Coast block and be all like, did I go back in time?
Why is the same episode of Aqua Teen Hunger Force on? What's happening?
Well, since Bridget is gone, it's time now for Breeze Tea Talk.
This is gimmick infringement.
That has been Breeze Tea Talk. I hope you enjoy.
You are violating the brand safety agreements of Wife City Productions by infringing on Evie's Evie Minute. Anyways, now it's time for the Evie Minute.
Anyway, Addiction by Design is a really interesting. I feel like it's basically like if you're someone who plays video games, you should probably at least be like aware of it because of how like pervasive those design techniques have like permeated video games as a medium. Like not even just like if you're someone who likes to think too much about video games like I do, but like if you're some like I have friends who play like gacha games. Like I got a buddy who still plays Zenless Zone Zero, and his wife plays Infinity Nikki, and it's like like I feel like it's if you're gonna be like a informed consumer of video games of a certain budget in the current era, you should know about like the Machine Zone and shit. That's the Eevee Minute.
Okay. Thank you for the Eevee Minute.
Thank you.
That was quite nice. All right. Well, now it's
time for the Machine Zone.
It's time for a different kind of Machine Zone.
It's time to talk laboriously about Pat.
Let's talk about the labor units of the SV2. Bridget, take us through a cursory summary of Patlabor 2, the movie.
Patlabor 2, the movie, is the second movie of Patlabor.
I never would have guessed it from the title. I would have assumed it was the movie for the Patlabor 2 season of television.
Which Patlabor starts as a comedy OVA series, and then they have a movie sequel, and then we reach this. There's a TV show as well, which is a separate, unaffiliated continue.
Give us a rundown of what the general premise of Patlabor is, to kind of give us a background for the rest of what we're going to talk about.
So in the world of Patlabor, traffic cops essentially have these robots called labors to stop other labor crime and the like, because there are people who have... In this world, the technology of having a giant... Like, I wouldn't be... It's not like a super giant robot. It's like a medium-ish. Your head can stick out of it.
Yeah.
Imagine if like a truck, like an Optimus Prime size, like a robot.
Yeah, it's maybe like a size up from something that you would consider power armor. Like in Marvel terms, it's like a Hulkbuster armor is about the size of it.
It's a short mech, yeah.
And basically centers around that group of people, you know, working through whatever
crime
assignment
of the week they're having to
effectively
deal with.
And so this movie centers around some of the characters. It has most of the characters from that show in it, except Konica Clancy, who is the American. Ironically.
Yeah, you say that, and it is very interesting that the one American character from the series is just kind of thrust out of the scene for this movie. That is very much about, as Dusty's comment alluded to, U.S. like hegemony in Japan.
So yeah, and in this movie in particular, it is effectively about one of the characters, Goto, trying to figure out and possibly stop a terrorist plot by a group in its most layman's terms.
Yeah, there's like a series of escalating terrorist attacks.
Yeah, it opens with like a missile attack on a bridge that, for all intents and purposes, seems to not have anyone on it at the moment, aside from a couple of like labor units that are like going in to defuse a supposed like bomb that has been planted on the bridge.
Yeah, so it got called in ahead that, hey, there's a car and they think there's a bomb on it.
But yeah, so it starts with that, then it moves on to like just them wanting to do like general theater of security shit around future potential attacks, because they have like a scare around like a couple of like jets being flown out from like a military base that were like not cleared by the people running that military base. So it's, as Bridget was saying, it's kind of just these escalating incidences that keep building the militarized presence of the government in the city of Tokyo.
Yeah, there is a gas attack done with inert gas. Like,
I mean, that's after everything has like effectively like fully popped off.
Basically, it's about a movie about how easy it is to artificially start up the militarization of a society.
Yeah, because like a part of the engine that's driving this is like a conflict between the kind of the nominally civilian police and like the military.
Yeah, military proper.
Yeah.
Still just like some Cold War stuff kind of floating around.
Sure.
Yeah.
But that's the Cold War is more backdrop to the movie that is like the full thrust of it. Go ahead and continue what you were saying, Evie.
But yeah, it's about the escalation of that. He disables basically all the comms, strategically blows up.
Disables?
With explosives.
Helicopters just flying through, just gunning
shit. Like,
yeah, gunning offices related, blowing up bridges that connect things, just severing all connection from each other.
Yeah, there's some symbolism here.
So something that I would say kind of in relation to what this film is about is it's definitely about how easy it is for these militarized power structures to just like take over and occupy like these cities. But I also feel like it's a movie that is like absolutely about how like neoliberalism and like the bureaucracies like surrounding them, how they are just fully unable to like properly respond to international and like domestic like terrorism and the like. Just national emergencies in general. Like a movie I thought about a lot while watching this was Shin Godzilla.
Yeah, that is another movie about the inefficiency of government.
Yeah. But you can say what you're gonna say, sorry.
But even in the movie itself, they reference the goal is not... There are no hostages. The goal, the chaos is the goal. The goal is to just go up to effectively the gates of the palace and blow it up and just watch things roll from there.
Well, I would say that there is a goal that Suge is trying to get there.
There is a goal, but it's not a stated thing. It's not something you can give somebody.
Well, he does have something like a statement that he gives to what's the name of the acting chief director?
Nagumo?
Yeah, he sends her a letter when he gets back to Japan that has the Bible verse in it, which is basically a statement of intent. Like he's like, I do not come to bring peace. I come to bring division. A family of 5 will be divided between 3 and 2. Mothers will fight daughters, fathers will fight sons, brothers against brothers, etc., etc. Yeah, I think it's worth kind of stepping back for a second and kind of saying like, so Suge, who is like the antagonist of the movie, he is like the kind of central person of this terrorist plot. He is kind of like, the movie starts with sort of his radicalizing moment where he's in some sort of like jungle conflict, or like conflict, set in a jungle with all of these laborers as part of like a UN peacekeeping operation, and they all just get annihilated because they're in the middle, because like they're a mechanized military force in a dense jungle.
And also because like the people delivering orders are like explicit. There's a whole video that I watched last night by this channel on YouTube called Under the Scope that goes into like the very specific like political like things that Oshii is trying to talk about in this movie. That is basically as a result of US occupation after World War II, like the US basically put into laws that like more or less like fully de-armed like Japanese, like took the military away from Japan and created like a on the ground self-defense force, but basically like it was very unmilitarized in the sense of like weaponry and stuff like that. And Japan would still be utilized, though, in those peacekeeping missions. But because they weren't allowed legally to use their weaponry, they would be sent into zones, like almost essentially like fodder, like we kind of see happen to Suge in that moment.
In the opening of the movie, where he, even though you can see he can probably, his team, is a bunch of robots. They could, it might not be the best environment for them, but
they have weapons that they could use, and the commanding voice is just saying like, no, don't fire, don't retreat, wait for the Canadians to arrive. And his squad gets fucking killed, he gets injured, and he's just kind of left in the aftermath of it, stranded in the middle of this jungle.
Yeah, and you get the impression that like he is attempting to kind of creating this illusion of war, like kind of drive a wedge between Japan and the U.S. The U.S. is imperial, like a military power. by creating a situation where the United States has, like, from their perspective, no choice but to, like, forcefully intervene in the situation. And, like, yeah, there's like a section late in the movie where, like, the U.S. Embassy is just like, hey, handle this or we're going to send in a carrier group by, tomorrow morning.
Returning to the thing, Bree, that you were saying about, like, the idea that Oshii, like, is also ACAB is the thing that I kind of take issue with, because I don't think Oshii is necessarily ACAB, because in that same video I watched, it had, like, excerpts of interviews with him where he talks about how he, like, Suge is essentially, like, Oshii's, like, self-insert character in this, in terms of, like, his view and ideology on this kind of thing. And, like, essentially Suge is someone who is trying to kind of remilitarize Japan in one way or another. Like, there's a good moment early on there. It's a subtle moment early on in the movie where Nagumo is, like, having that, like, big, like, debriefing where she's talking about, like, how, like, crime, like, labor crime stats are, like, increasing with, like, the level of, like, labor presence in, like, certain parts of Tokyo or certain parts of Japan, and the like. And you, like,
specifically she's talking about how all the labors were centered in Tokyo, and now it's spread. They've spread out, deployed them effectively in different sections of the country.
Yeah, and like, part of Suge, like, aside from, like, kind of putting that wedge in between Japan and the US, it's also very much, like, his point is kind of being like, this is what happens when, your, like, self-defense, like, peace forces don't have, like, the weaponry and, like, manpower to respond to these situations. Like, you can just have a couple of, like, a handful of these armed units just fucking easily level a city if they wanted to. Like, this is what we could do with, like, very pointed strategic thing. Imagine what it would be like if we were doing this, if we were just directing this at, like, civilians and the like, as opposed to, communications, government buildings, etc., etc.
Yeah, they shoot down all those, like, communication towers and whatnot.
The other important character in this is Arakawa, who is a fucker.
He's great. I kind of love that dude.
Creepy dude.
Absolute creep, but kind of spitting straight fucking fire during that, like, montage. Sorry, go ahead and say what you're gonna say.
Yeah, Arakawa is a very interesting character. You'll notice instantly he has a lazy eye that is, like, just looking in one direction. He often has his eyes, like, either obscured or, like, has a lot of, like, reflections in his glasses, particularly. And the other thing is, he really does not drop his guard all that much. Basically, only when he is arrested, like when they do the stage at the end, he is shocked for 1 second, and then you see the, like, lights shine on his glasses, and then his facade is back on.
I didn't really notice that at the time. That's an interesting detail.
It was something that struck me so much about Arakawa. Like, he's one of those characters, like, you kind of get the read on him immediately, like, that he's probably a scumbag, but because he's working with, like, Goto and Nagumo, you kind of put it in the back of your mind a bit. Like, you suspect there's something going on with him, but you're like, it's probably fine. Like, there's bigger issues to worry about here.
Yeah, much like the rest of what's going on in the film, it's hard to read. It's like, what's going on,
Mm-hmm. Was there anything specific aside from that with Arakawa you were wanting to point out?
I just wanted to mention him because we hadn't yet, and he is a big part of the movie too.
Yeah, a thing that we haven't mentioned yet is that the reason, or like the way that Suge is able to like execute on these plans is that he has people in the military essentially who are his accomplices and like actually carrying out specific parts of the plan at various times.
Like, he was enough of an influential figure that they literally created, like, a terminology, like, around him of, like, people who trained under him in, like, the Suge school. Like, part of the intrigue of the movie is that Nagumo was a part of that group. So, like, as you watch the movie, part of you maybe suspects if, like, she's in on it in some way or another. So that...
Well, they talk about his relationship with her a little bit, and like her relationship with him. Like, she apparently, like, she had, you know, some kind of affair with him, and I think for that reason, like, she ends up... The suspicion I feel like it's so weird because, like, I haven't really had time to think about, because we watched this movie like late last night. I haven't like, I'm not sure how to
cost her a chance to move up.
Well, like, it wasn't really... I don't think she did it to move up. I think it was just like a...
No, it was just like a spur... It was just spur
Well,
thing.
no, but I'm saying, didn't that make things complicated for her work life, though, when that happened?
Well, yeah, they state they sent her off, you know, to their unit, their...
Right.
Where she wouldn't have the ability to gain, you know...
Yeah, they said this wouldn't have been an issue if he hadn't been married. Yeah. So, you know, there was... Yeah, it was an affair. This is a very disjointed episode. There's going to be a lot of editing.
I mean, it'll be fine. I'm not too worried about that side of things. Really, it's disjointed because this is such a fucking dense movie to talk about.
Yeah, we kind of got there through Arakawa. Like, Suge is part of like an informal group within the military that like were basically trying to like push for remilitarization. And it's revealed at the very end that Arakawa is also a member of this group, but a wing of it that like...
Yeah, it's like a split faction even in...
Yeah, like his group was convinced that this would be like a quick political stunt essentially, and like there would like nothing would actually happen. But the moment that like things actually started exploding, like he realizes that Suge is like serious about like going all the way with it.
Yeah, and this isn't like a political show. It's the real fucking deal.
Yeah, so he turns to the Patlabor crew because they are like...
The black sheep.
Yeah, they're kind of black sheep within the police force, and tries to instrumentalize
hey, traffic
them.
cops, take these mechs. Yeah.
Yeah, and he tries to instrumentalize them against, you know, Suge.
Yeah.
Do you think this has something to say about the militarized police force?
I mean, it's got a little bit to say about that, but really what this movie is more about is about like the idea of like peace and war being concepts that are so inextricably like tied to one another that like you cannot escape it. Like, there's a refrain multiple times through this movie of people saying like, this war fucking started years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Like that, and like getting into like the idea of, this is a movie that is deeply about the concept of blowback. Like, just like things like we're gonna start talking about terrorism.
I mean, this movie is so much about terrorism. So.
But like the fact of the matter is, this is not any like moral call on like what a moral stance on terrorism is, just simply the reality. These things exist as consequence to things that are happening either geopolitically or domestically in a country.
Yeah.
Like these, if this stuff is happening, that means that there's some shit that's going on that caused it. Like, that's what they mean when they say, like, this war was started years ago. That war started in, like, the peacekeeping operation.
He specifically says, we're going to be punished. And he's like, punished? Who's going to punish us? God?
No, the people will. Like, and that ends up being the thing, is, like, another thing that so, like, kind of on the topic of neoliberalism, I think a thing that, you know, neoliberalism just cannot answer for is how isolation and alienation is, like, are, like, natural byproducts of living under that kind of ideology in society, like, specifically neoliberal capitalism and the like. Are so inextricably, like, tied to one another. And unfortunately, like, those are the exact kind of elements that radicalize people to doing shit like terrorist acts. Like, you need only look at the United States of America and, like, mass shootings as an endemic thing in our society. Like, all these fucking, like, random, like, teenagers with mental health problems and, like, too close of a tie to, like, incredibly, like, mentally toxic online platforms and easy access to weapons will just be like, I guess I'm gonna go shoot up a black community or something like that. Like, these are things that happen because of that. And I gotta kind of do my spiel. I'm sorry, Bridget, but, like, when you live under an ideology where, like, mental health is a luxury, so there's no safety net for, like, vulnerable people who are likely to get pulled into, like, cults or grifter circles that take advantage of those kinds of people, this is what happens. Weapons are a multi-million-dollar market under capitalism, so there is no regulatory answer to radicalize people and groups that would use those weapons for terrorizing civilians. Bureaucratic systems are constructed in such a way that, like, that they cannot, like, quickly respond to those kinds of things. Like, you can see all of those things, like, kind of in action with Suge, where, like, you have someone who didn't fully come back from the war or that peacekeeping operation. You have the weapons that he was able to easily access because of his connections, and you have these bureaucratic systems that, like, don't know. They keep talking about planning for the worst case scenario, but they don't know what the worst case scenario actually fucking looks like because they are not in it.
The only way that SV2 is able to actually, like, effectively work against Suge is because like they rely on the connections that they have, like, outside of the actual bureaucracy itself. They come to the conclusion of, like, we just have to do this ourselves because we know that the brass is not actually going to get their shit together in time to keep this from.
There's the meeting they have with all the, like, heads towards the end.
Oh, Lord.
Where Nagamo is just laying onto them. And she's like, we know what is happening.
And Goto's in his own head and that little, like, warped reality of his own, just like, he's like, shut up. Yeah.
Muttering to himself. He's just going, like, as he's trying to process even what to do in the...
he's so clearly letting that wash over and just completely shut off from it. He's just like, oh my god. They're not...
Sorry, I don't want to interrupt you, but...
They're not doing anything. This isn't gonna work, you know what I mean?
Like, I feel like we're gonna get so lost in talking about, like, themes and, like, and the like with this movie that I just want to quickly say the characters in this movie are great. I fucking love Goto. Goto's a great character in this movie. Same with Nagamo. Like, Arakawa, despite being a scumbag, is, like, a really interesting character.
He's an interesting scumbag.
Like, needless to say, like, despite how dense this is as a text, like there's also just likable characters in it that really make the experience so enjoyable.
That one investigator who gets like chained to a pipe and has his own.
The worst sneaking mission ever. He falls off. He falls into the snow. Like
punches the glass open
and then falls through the window too.
It's a weirdly comedic movie for what it's addressing. Like, they know how to throw in some giggles, you know?
It's really comedic, but only because, like, this is your first Oshii thing you've seen.
It is,
like,
to my knowledge,
You've never seen Ghost in the Shell, right?
Not yet, no.
I thought we watched Angel's Egg together with Bray.
Oh, yeah, I forget that that's directed by Oshii.
Okay.
Angel's Egg is such a weird, like, art project of a thing.
Weirder than
hard.
this movie, for sure.
I mean, deeply weirder. Like, most of Oshii stuff is normal compared to Angel's Egg. Not saying Angel's Egg is bad, it's just very, very different. But, like, Oshii, before kind of going on this path of being more of, like, an auteur figure in anime, is, like, known for doing, like, what's that like other OVA series, Sayonara Banzai? What was it?
Well, the thing he was known for comedy wise was Urusei Yatsura, and then after the first movie, he made Beautiful Dreamer, which is more
kind of like this,
which
but then he also did the Patlabor OVA series, which original Patlabor is like goofy comedy hijinks.
Cop comedy,
yeah.
But the guy knows how to make like a good, like very deep and intense film and still mix that in without it like gunking it up any, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean,
like when Arakawa first shows up and brings the tape, it starts playing like some drama music, and he's like, I
it's
know
supposed
this.
to be it's a karaoke tape, is what it is.
That just like happens to capture the moments right before.
Yeah, I thought that was cute.
That seems in poor taste. That like a karaoke company would be like, yeah, let's use this footage that's leading up to like this bridge bombing for this thing.
Well, I mean, I think the thing was. Well, yeah, I don't know. What they were.
Remember when the investigator goes to the guy with the tapes, that tape got pulled, presumably by Arakawa. Someone had already taken it before he got there. Yeah, pretending to be the police, essentially.
But yeah, so, he's like, hey, do you want to sing the song? And he's like, I don't have a mic set up.
Like, all right, then I'll skip it. Like he almost seems a little bit like, oh, I wanted to sing. All right.
Yeah, there's good banter between them.
There's really good banter. Also, like weirdly, can I just say, and maybe some of this is my like, you know, my personal like nostalgic tie to in our time loving like hand drawn anime and stuff. Like it is a weirdly almost deceptively cozy aesthetic. And it's mostly calm and quiet movie, and holding its breath with you, like waiting to see what's happening. And I think that's what makes something where this movie, not a lot happens in it, and yet it is so engaging. Like it kind of sits with you in that calm of like, what's gonna happen? You know, what's happening? Where's this leading to? You know?
It kind of. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Evie.
I wouldn't characterize it as cozy. Personally, because it's just like I think of like that one scene where like Goto is like standing by him, like it's a funny scene, but like right after I keep forgetting her name, Nagumo. Right after she like storms out of the office that they were sharing, and he's just standing there next to the little heat source with the teapot, and it's just like the lighting is so cold and like fluorescent. Like everyone looks like they're like it looks like they're in a morgue. And there's the only like warmth in the scene is like the little like flame that he's cozying up next to.
What were you gonna say, Bridget? You have a thing.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, in the similar like morgue-esque, a common musical theme in this film is a track called Unusual. I think it's called Unusual City. And it probably the most it plays during the monologue about Unjust Peace, and it also plays when it's just silence and
Unnatural City.
And when it's just showing shots of the military just being in public spaces with
So the kind of to tie Bree, you and Evie's view on it, I would describe it's less that it's cozy, but it ties into another thing that like Oshii got interviewed around, where because so much of the movie like revolves around the destruction of Tokyo, there's an interview where he talks about like kind of his distaste for movies that display a destruction of a city, but like even before the destruction happens, it kind of casts the city in a bit of an unfavorable light. Like in the discussion, he points specifically to something like Akira.
Sure.
Where like that city is fucking gross.
Yeah.
That is not like a pretty city that you are seeing blown up, but instead like Patlabor 2 is trying, it's less that it's trying to be cozy, it's more just trying to be a very cold, real city that actual people are like living their normal everyday lives in, tying into like what ends up eventually being like kind of the conclusion of the movie, like the final confrontation you have with Suge, where like he's looking at the city from afar and he's talking about like how it doesn't feel real to him.
Yeah.
Like there is such a fakeness to that city because of that disconnect he has from his experience of taking part in the US hegemony, like that, you know, allows a city like that to exist.
He compares
like,
it to a mirage, yeah.
Yeah, like the divide is just like it's stuck in his head and he like cannot get past it at all.
I think like the half-rusted, just lived in quality of the city like is, I don't know, like it doesn't, I don't know how to phrase it because it doesn't frame it as being like disgusting and decrepit, but it is kind of like a very material and mechanic world, like mechanical sort of like disconnected thing going on with it, where it's like it's fascinating.
Well, I mean, my favorite part of the montage that Bridget alludes to in where Arakawa is talking about like the unjust peace and the just war is like you have him talking about all this while you are seeing like not necessarily the gross parts of Tokyo, but kind of like the more like the
industrial,
the industrial like raw materials, like the parts that are still being built of the city. Like you are seeing the bones that eventually make up what the rest of the city that you see is, as he's like kind of laying out like
what a scene.
Like, it's for a scene that's literally just shots of like landscape and shit like that. Amazing scene.
Yeah,
like
the landscape painting in this and every aspect of this movie in every place is gorgeous. Like it's a really beautiful film.
Yeah, like just impeccable direction and art design all around, and again with that soundtrack by fucking Kenji Kawai.
I was listening to that having my bath this morning. I was just like, I knew I'm gonna listen to this completely disconnected of the film like for a while. I was engrossed with the soundtrack immediately.
But I don't want to talk too much if there are other points that people are wanting to
I think the Bible verse is interesting. To back up a second, like they find the pipe investigator guy. While he's there, he also finds a code disk that includes like the text of a Bible verse, and it's revealed that the text of that verse is also the only thing that Suge wrote in a note that he sent to Nagumo when he, initially returned to Japan, and it is the text of. Hold on, I kept BibleRef.com up. It's Luke 1? Yeah, 1251, 1253. And like the context of it is interesting. It's in a section like it is like from the New Testament. It is Jesus speaking, and it is saying that he's frustrated with his disciples about their concerns with things other than entering like the kingdom of God. he's like looking back a couple of verses back to 1259. He says in the NIV version, "I have come to bring fire to the earth, and how I wish it were already kindled. But I have a baptism to undergo, and what constraint I am under until it is completed." And then he says, "Do you think I came to bring peace on earth? No, I tell you, but division." And he's basically saying, don't get it twisted. In order to bring salvation to the people of the world, it's going to drive families apart and cause conflicts among people, but it should still be the goal that we're striving towards, and all this other stuff that the disciples are concerned about, wealth or honor or
worldly things.
Yeah, worldly considerations of virtue don't matter, because salvation is the thing. And it's interesting to consider that.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
It's just interesting to consider that with what Suge is trying to do.
As a non-religious person, I directly, when we found out it was a Bible verse, I assumed this was just some Satan shit. So it's kind of wild. But it makes sense in context then, yeah.
One thing to be noted is Oshii in his youth would read the Bible a lot, and a lot of his works contain
allusions to
the Bible and Christianity. Although I don't think he considers himself a Christian. So.
For sure. I mean,
some people they just want to flip through a book,
So, some people just read the Bible. It happens.
Sometimes you're in a motel room, you're bored, you're like, all right, what the fuck's this actually say?
Okay, so there are a few other things I wanted to talk about, kind of circling back to Suge's motivation for doing these things. Another kind of real thing that my brain immediately jumped to was Charles Whitman, which for people who don't know, that's the University of Texas clock tower shooter. It's one of those scenarios where obviously these two stories are not fully analogous, but when you look at something like what Suge does in this movie as a result of his experiences, and then you look at a real life character like Charles Whitman, who is a Marine veteran who is going through a physical and mental health crisis due to a brain tumor, who went into a violent rampage, went to the top of a clock tower in the center, because it seems like you probably don't know about this.
No, you've told me about this.
Okay. You were shaking, you were nodding your head oh shit.
No, I'm waiting to get to my points, but I'm letting you talk.
But yeah, so he just starts shooting people in the center of this campus, and the police force in the country see this, and they get medical reports about the fact an autopsy is done after they ascertain the dude, and they know he's got a brain tumor that was pressing down on his amygdala, making him do violent shit. But instead of putting money into healthcare programs that would help take care of people from the jump, instead of allowing these kinds of things to get exacerbated, law enforcement decides hey, there's this little guy in Los Angeles who came up with this little idea called SWAT. What if we implemented those units nationwide? Just again, neoliberal capitalism, just being fully unequipped to deal with the realities of the human experience. Instead of saying let's deal with these things as human beings, as opposed to crises that we have to respond to violently.
Instead of prevention, we spend that money over arming people who probably shouldn't have this level of power, and have them deal with it when it happens.
Yeah,
and it's It's insane. Like, because you were talking about that when you were reading Rise of the Warrior Cop, I believe, right?
Well, I mean, that's directly where I found out about that story from. Like,
that's how I know about it.
Specifically the brain tumor part, where it's just like, oh, fuck this. God. Yeah. That's the reason why I haven't finished reading that book, because I read that part and it made me so angry that I was like, I need to stop because this is gonna incense me.
I'm gonna note a quick positive to break up all the negative. You were pointing out as well, and something that I noticed while we were watching this, because like you were talking about how like in early animation and early 3D especially, you have a lot of like machinist nerds working on stuff. So have these things. The machine-y nerd design that went into this is insanely good. I'm sure that the manga probably has a fair deal of this too. I haven't read it, but like when
it's not based on manga.
It isn't based on manga?
No.
Oh, okay.
It was an OVA series that expanded into it.
But like when a camera moves on like a geared conveyor, you see its wired belt move with it, and you can feel the thing traveling on the teeth of its gears, and all mechanical movements of any kind visually make sense, which is not always easy to convey in fictional machines. Like, that is impressive.
It's definitely despite there only being like collectively 20 to 30 minutes of like mecha animation in this movie, it's still a movie for like
that is based on a property that primarily features mecha.
It's still a movie for like gearhead perverts and weapon perverts. The shots of like the helicopters like going through, tearing apart the city, that the fucking anti-tank rifle that the SV2 like get in that last act, like it's stuff to make the gun perverts' dicks very hard.
Yeah, I am also just generally fascinated with machinery and robots.
By the way, they're called
headgear. If I was actually like, you know, genuinely smarter, I probably would have gone on to be like, you know, I see this proof alone, I forget what the word is, but I probably would have become someone who works on like machines and robots and stuff.
What were you guys saying?
Engineer, that's the word. I would have been an engineer. I would have driven that choo-choo. Anyway.
Oh yeah, just the shot of there's a part at the end where one of the police laborers is like about to deploy like a jammer thing, and like all the equipment like pops out of its head, and it's just like, you know, just like so intricately animated. It was just like, oh my god. I yelled.
Bridget, you alluded to this in the lead up to us watching this movie. Do you want to talk about how Oshii got questioned out? Do we finally talk about the Tokyo Sarin Gas Attacks now?
Sure. Yeah, Oshii got questioned about it because of this movie. And there's like, do you know anything about this? Because...
like, so to kind of spell it out, in Patlabor 2, Bree also alluded to it earlier, there's one part of Suge's plan is like, he has these like fleet of blimps.
He has three blimps that are circling around Tokyo, and like you see this early on.
Oh yeah.
Really good, like, foreshadowing there, by the way. But yeah, like, once everything is kind of, like, locking into place with Suge's plans, like, the Japanese self-defense forces, like, decide, like, okay, we're gonna fucking shoot down, like, basically land these blimps by, like, kind of shooting out the like pilot cabinet and stuff. Like, they're trying to disarm it in some way or another, so they shoot it down, and then it goes into like this autopiloted crash into the city,
like a staged crash.
Yeah, and it crashes, and as soon as it crashes, this like yellow orange smoke starts pluming out of it, and like the military is freaking the fuck out. Like, everyone put your fucking gas masks on. Like, we are all gonna die.
Yeah,
we
get on higher ground. Like, run away from this. Holy shit.
Like, and then, you watch them scrambling. One person trying to get up, like, the other cop just shoves him off the escalator.
Yeah, dudes are like shooting out windows, like, as they're trying to get out of like the subway system to try and get out of like up to elevated positions. And then suddenly as one of them is yelling at the other, they notice that there's like a dog barking, and just nonplussed by anything, and that's how they discover it was actually an inert gas. Like, it was just a colored gas that was meant to just kind of be like, fuck you guys. This is how much Suge is stunting on you. Like, if this had been like actual poisonous gas, you would have been fucked.
That's right, Tokyo.
However,
you just got pranked.
However, they do discover possibly poisonous gas in the blimp.
Yeah.
They find canisters of like undispersed.
They won't test it and see if it's poisonous because they're too.
Yeah, they're too chicken shit. Yeah. Like
they're not prepared.
Yeah, but so that happens in Patlabor 2 in 1993 is when this movie came out.
It's in 1993.
Yeah. This comes out. This is the thing he makes before Ghost in the Shell.
Yeah, and then 2 years later in Tokyo, there is this cult called Amshinrakyu who stages a series of terrorist attacks where essentially their people will go into subways. They have these like plastic bags that have been filled with, you know, a poisonous combination of materials, sarin gas, and they will poke it open with an umbrella and just kind of let that flow out into the subway car that they are in. And, you know, that it was so evocative to the Japanese government in Patlabor 2 that they were like, Oshii has to know something is going on here. And it's one of those things that, to me, just it kind of drives home the point of the movie that like these power structures like look at these attacks as like these one-off incidences that couldn't have been prevented, and usually like instead respond with either increased militarization or or blaming violent outbursts on like cultural ephemera, like fucking aggressive music or violent media.
We actually didn't talk about it, but one of the plot points is like the people up top being like, figuring out which group to blame.
Yeah, like so much of this movie is like people in positions of power being like, no, we can't talk about this. Like, we gotta keep this shit on the down low. Like, until we know who to point the finger at, we can't like say shit about this.
Yeah, we need someone to blame.
Which is another one of those things that like fucking neoliberal capitalism is just like that is another big thing that leads to them being completely inept in responding to this shit, because like it would literally involve oftentimes taking responsibility for the shit that they do. Like, again, the whole thing with Suge wouldn't happen without the US hegemony like decades back, like putting these things into action. And, you know, in order to admit that they would have to admit that they are the ones at fault. Like, if anything were going to be done here.
It's a fair point.
Like, it's just all fucked from the bottom down.
Yeah. Also, bad news, everybody. 9/11 actually wasn't a response to American imperialism. They were just playing Mortal Kombat, and they got bad ideas and became bad.
It's okay. They can be a lot more racist about it because, you know, it's brown people, you know, that did the acts.
I'm embarrassed by this country.
Fair.
Yeah.
Also, in that big meeting towards the end, that's also when Goto basically says, you know, people up top they have zero inclination of what people on the ground are doing.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think that quote, I also pulled this from the Under the Scope video that I watched, but that is like specifically a quote from like a book about like war, and specifically like government response to war, because they are so disconnected from, you know, human reality that they just aren't connected. Like, in the same way that Suge is not connected, so are these fucking, like, people in higher positions of power. They're just alienated. Again, isolation, alienation, the coldness of this movie. Like, it all very much plays into what causes these kinds of things to happen.
It is an interesting thing to watch so recently to, like, Tinker Tailor Soldier, really.
That's fair. I didn't even consider that. That's a, like, pretty fair point.
I was thinking about that while we were watching it, just kind of like that, like the discussion of like kind of the backdrop of Cold War politics on just like the distrust and the imbalances, and it's just like there's a little bit of that on serendipity.
And one more thing we have to talk about. It's the birds.
Oh, the birds. I mean, I don't have much to say aside from like there's a lot of fucking birds in this movie. There's so many birds.
I can only think of like when they're rolling in some of the bigger artillery and like you hear that track that has like the eagle sound effect in it. That's an interesting little...
I mean, that's a regular motif. Like that eagle sound effect comes through like so many times.
It comes through so many times, and one of them is specifically a prelude to a missile hitting a building.
Yeah. Let me want to look through my notes here. Kind of going back to the point we were talking about, like the soundtrack of this movie and just the general like direction and like landscapes of this film. I'm not like the biggest fan of Oshii's work in general, just because they don't tend to like emotionally resonate with me super strongly. But like the thing I can always give him credit for is he's so good at setting a fucking mood in his films. Like that is the most undeniable thing about Oshii as a director. Like, you look at Ghost in the Shell, you look at Patlabor 2, like, he's just beautiful, beautiful mood work in there.
And Basset Hounds. Don't forget Basset Hounds. Those are very important.
I mean, it's Oshii. You gotta talk about the Basset Hounds if he's in the conversation.
There's an interesting thing about, as someone who is not acquainted with Patlabor, this movie seems to be about characters who are pretty ancillary in the rest of the series, or the two main characters of the series up to this point are kind of like not very involved in the plot.
Yeah, they effectively appear. They appear at the beginning and then they show up again
right at the end. Like, there was a funny moment while we were watching where, like, right before, like, kind of the final act really starts, like, those two characters are driving to where all of SV2 is meeting, and I just kind of pause and while we're watching and say, it's really funny that these two are the actual main characters of Patlabor.
Oh, yeah.
While we're watching it.
Yeah, the most they get is like on the bike ride home, they talk about how the new robot technology is weird because it basically is giving you eyes forward and back.
Forward, back, on the stomach, I think they say, is also where there's like a set of like cameras on it.
Yeah, they mentioned like seeing the world from the back of their stomach made them feel sick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They said, well, it's the same with like bicycle riding. You used to have to take classes for that, and now humanity just takes it as like a fact.
Humanity can be taught to operate new things.
Humanity can be taken to operate new things, and also you get into like the world that we exist in and nowadays, where like war used to be a thing that was like a lot closer to people living in certain parts of the world, like specifically US, Japan, places like that. And now we are so divided from that time, and we are so used to proxy wars being fought like halfway across the globe that it's just a kind of an inherent part of our reality that we don't think about anymore, or that the majority of the population doesn't think about anymore. I'm sure all of us here on this call think about it, unfortunately, too much, and are like, oh god.
But during the moment where he said that, and they're kind of driving towards the final part of the movie, the one character or one of them asked the other one, just like, aren't you worried that being a part of this will, like, you know, you can have your, like, license to pilot a labor taken away, like, and it's something that, like, she clearly, like, is, like, very important to her. And she says, I don't want to just be known as the girl who loves labors a whole lot. It's just, it's really interesting for them to have to take the time for her to say that and be like, I don't want to be the kind of person who, like, will put this thing I love over
my beliefs.
You know, other things that are more important.
And that's a beautiful little piece of character writing for someone who doesn't get to show a lot of character in it.
I'm sure if we were more familiar with Noah as a character throughout all of Patlabor, that probably would strike a bit more of a, like, strong chord for her emotionally. But it still works as, like, a nice little note in there. Can I talk about Disco Elysium spoilers for, like, the next, like, 5 to 10 minutes or so?
I do want to say real quick before you do that, I do think, like, the final confrontation of this movie is, like, the acting chief Nagumo arresting Suge on, like, a little reclaimed island on the outside in the bay outside the city, and it's just covered with gulls in a way that immediately made me think of the end of Metal Gear Solid 3.
Oh,
there's just like
confronting.
Yeah, we were confronting. What are your beliefs, Nagumo? What's your loyalty to your country?
We were talking about this. I mean, of course,
Kojima
knows this.
Oh,
movie.
Kojima loved this film, absolutely.
Yeah. The thing that struck me the most in that final confrontation with Suge is, like, it feels so fucking parallel with the ending of Disco Elysium, where in the story of Disco Elysium, there's this murder that happens in the city of Revachol. You're a detective trying to get to the bottom of it. You eventually find out who the murderer is, and it's this war veteran who is, like, part of, like, the communist, like, revolt against, you know, the neoliberal, like, hegemony that was,
the
like,
last
trying
communist left alive, essentially.
Exactly. And, you know, he essentially saw everyone, all of his ideals and everything, literally nuked out of existence by the powers that be. And he just decided to fuck off to an island out in the Bay of Revachol and just watch it from afar. With, like,
because he's a sniper.
Yeah, he was a sniper in the war, and he's just constantly watching with binoculars, and, like, literally that moment is absolutely echoing the scene with Suge, where he is watching the city from afar and talking about how he does not feel like it is real to him, because that's the whole thing with the sniper in Disco Elysium, is, like, he is able to do that act because he is so alienated by the war that he went through, what he saw there, and also just that full disconnect from being engaged with the life of that city, that, like, it effectively does not feel real to him. Like, it's kind of all a like, diorama more than anything. So
as you said, it's like an illusion.
Yeah,
that was where you started kind of drawing that parallel too.
I think an interesting like separation between the two is that the deserter in Disco Elysium, the thing that actually, like, kicks it off for him, like, for him to actually, like, commit the murder that the game is about, is, like, it's a personal thing. It's that, like, he gets fixated on this one woman and, like, creeps on her from, like, his sniper perch, and, like, he gets so mad that she is fucking this strike breaking, like, hired thug, that he fucking shoots him,
like, from downtown.
And, like, there's a funny moment where he's just like, yep, still got it.
Versus a character like Suge, who, like, it's very much not personal.
Like in fact, the one person, like the personal element is the extent to which like he gives Nagumo a heads up and like kind of gives her a carve out in the whole plan by like sending her the letter, which is like a cryptic kind of warning of what his intentions are, and then like trying to meet with her later. And Arakawa kind of puts it just like, you know, parents will do anything for their children. And so just like the idea that he Nagumo is a person that Suge is like has this connection to the extent that he's willing to blow up all of his plans just to make sure that she is like
okay.
Yeah. Or if not okay, then at least is like has this like knows why he's doing it, I guess.
Another parallel I want to draw, there's not a lot I really want to say about it, but it's interesting. As someone who, like, one of my favorite shows of all time is Mamoru Penguin Drum, which is a show that is explicitly about the Tokyo Sarin Gas Attacks and, like, kind of the emotional core of what can bring people to do something like that. Like, that's kind of what that show is about how much the society we live in like isolates and alienates us from the rest of everyone around us and can lead us to these kinds of like dark paths for ourselves. And meanwhile, you have something like Patlabor, which is more about like very much the material reality that leads to those things. Like they are interesting works to take in tandem, especially how they are both works about punishment, you know, the sins of the father kind of thing, being like in Penguin Drum, to get into Penguin Drum spoilers briefly, the whole thing is that like part of the terrorist group are the like parents of the kids that the show focuses about. And a lot of bad shit happens to the kids because of people who are victims of the acts that their parents did. So that you have that side of it. And then you have Patlabor 2, which is about Suge doing these things because he sees the way that US hegemony has like moved in on the world in general and decided that this is a sin that needs to be corrected and punished. Mm-hmm. So like I don't know. They are interesting things to take in tandem with one another. So that's kind of like my last major talking point that I wanted to touch on. I don't know if folks have other things they want to talk about.
I mean, while I'm at it, I guess I'll go ahead and just start like mentioning the many ways that, you know, as this was one of the kind of movies of all time as it is, the many ways that this was, I didn't know how much this was an inspiration to things until as I'm watching it, because this is my first experience with Patlabor, I was like, wait a minute, that's what that's from. I made a few connections. Yeah. Some of these Patlabor 1 clips were used throughout the music video for KMFDM's Juke Joint Jezebel. The music video for the song Transformers by Jan Hammer, I know this is a weird pick, has that like 3D rendering of the labor robot being like assembled that I know has gone around in like sort of computer graphics demos like over time. And I'm pretty fucking sure, nay, I would put money down on the idea that the exterminator robots from Chrono Trigger are based entirely on the tunnel robots in this film.
Yeah.
Like, holy shit. And I mean, like, this was like,
you showed me the pixel art of it, and I was like, oh, yeah, that's absolutely...
93 to 95, they definitely went, let's put that in there. That looks cool. Like, it's amazing just the many little ways that this has clearly, like, just influenced so many things, and to the point that, like, a lot of things just directly reference and use their, their stuff. It's really cool. Just to see how much this left an imprint on people when it's something that, at least, you know, semi-involved in anime my whole life, I had just never really heard of or taken the time to watch. So I'm glad I finally did.
Yeah, same here. I'm super fucking glad I finally watched this movie. Thank you for that, Bridget.
You heard it here. The team is finally happy for my anime.
I can basically guarantee that, you know, on the list that will probably be made at the end of this year, this is probably going to be towards the top.
No, yeah.
For me.
I mean,
Oh, sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, it's going to be hard to dethrone this, but change my mind, as they say.
What's up, Evie?
This may be like a Boss Baby moment, but I noticed there were like, I don't know, there were things in there that struck me as like coded references to the video game series Wizardry.
Oh, the sequence with the jets.
Yeah, like Trebor is Robert backwards, which is like I forget whether it's either the king or the wizard in the first Wizardry game, Labyrinth of the Mad King or whatever the fuck it's called. And also Hawkwind, which is a different code name that's used, is it's the name of the ninja in the animated Wizardry OVA.
I mean, that is totally possible. Oshii loves video games. He is a staunch Fallout 4 defender. Although he got stuck and had to watch somebody's Let's Play
Did he get, like, bugged? And
if you watch Vlad Love, it has a special thanks to the streamer he watched that helped him get through.
So funny. That's so fucking funny.
Through Fallout 4.
Are there any other particular, like, things you're wanting to highlight from throughout the movie, Bridget?
I think we've covered a lot of good bases. I mean, I know for a fact, at the very least, there'll definitely be another point where I feel like popping a different Oshii movie, because I do quite like Mamoru Oshii. His animated films, live action...
For sure, but I'm definitely open to seeing more of their work.
He is unequivocally a deeply fascinating director, more than anything for me. Even if he's not the most entertaining for me at times, this is the most entertaining, like, one of his works that I have seen.
This is also probably, thinking about it, the last work that even had any sort of like integration of his comedy background. Because
for a long time until Vlad Love.
Yeah, basically. Or his weird live actions, but definitely wasn't that crappy short he did for the Halo anime.
I gotta check that out. See what he's up to with John 3:16.
I think it was about the Arbiter.
But, yeah, the Arbiter. Bridget, what are your final thoughts on Patlabor 2 then?
This is a fantastic movie. As somebody who watched this movie, obviously, after the 9/11 attacks.
That's the funny thing, is this is a movie that's way more about 9/11 than it is about the Tokyo Sarin Gas Attacks.
It was before its time, truly.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, I co-opted your final thoughts.
And this movie has a different Twin Towers in it.
All right, then. Bree, what are your final thoughts on this movie?
I mean, shit, it's aesthetic, it sounds amazing, it looks amazing, and it was very gripping, as I had said earlier, for something that didn't have a lot of, like, super action in it. Like, I was just sitting there, like, amazed at, like, all the points this hits on. I was really entertained. It's a really good film.
Yeah. I mean, maybe my biggest takeaway, aside from everything I've rambled about during this 2 hours we've been recording, is, like, it's similarly to the tendrils of U.S. imperialism. Patlabor 2 is one of those movies you can kind of see the influence of everywhere in media, maybe even more so than Ghost in the Shell. But yeah, that's... Evie, as the person picking the next movie, what are your final thoughts?
This movie was very good. I'm glad I watched it. It's a very cool political thriller. It feels very Tom Clancy-ish, except like I would probably take this over any given Tom Clancy thing. But I'm glad I watched it. I recommend it.
Weird. Oh yeah. Well then.
And as far as the movie I was gonna pick, my short list like has a few ended up having a few like really good choices on it.
What do you want to share? What your short list looked like?
Yeah, it was like among the things that I didn't pick are Jennifer's Body from 2009.
Damn it.
Roger Craig Smith, who is the voice of Goto in the 2006 dub, worked on that. Event Horizon.
Ooh,
Yeah. I forget where the connection is on that one. There was another one. The Fifth Element. I believe the voice actor for Ota is like a starship captain in The Fifth Element. Someone did sound work on God Bless America, the Bobcat Goldthwait movie.
Ooh, that's a good film. That's a very good film.
And like those would all be very good choices. But sometimes like you gotta listen to your heart. You have to like you just see something and you're like, when's the next opportunity I'm gonna have? Like I feel like I have to, like, it's maybe not the best pick, but it's the one that sticks in my head and I want to go there. Robert Clotworthy, the voice actor for Suge in the 2006 dub, he's worked on a ton of stuff, but most relevant to me, he's one of the assorted voices in the 2004 film The Chronicles of Riddick. Which will be my next pick.
Chronicles of Riddick.
Not Pitch Black. The Chronicles of Riddick.
Beautiful.
Oh.
So it is. All right.
Starring Vin Diesel. All right, then. Evie, can people find you on social media?
Nah.
Okay. Bree, can people find you on social media?
Hey, I'm back to streaming over on twitch.tv/EasyBreezyTV. That's EAZYBREEZY at TV. And if you see an annoying, loud robot cat girl with green hair, that's me, baby. You can also find a lot of my artwork anyway over on Blue Sky under Nesbo. That's also how you look up my VGen, vgen.co/ASNESBO. And you can commission me to make animated emotes or illustrations, or I do VTuber rigging. I have some fun. We have some fun.
Okay.
But yeah, I got a few links there. Enjoy them.
Bridget, can people find you on social media?
I just want to say we're in the Vin zone now. We can keep this Vin train going.
We got the VIN number, yeah.
Next episode's going to be like 100% running on diesel, baby.
That's right.
How long have you been waiting to make that this whole time?
Nope.
Okay, good.
I saw the opportunity and I took it.
I respect either way.
Golf clap for you.
Good.
We can do the Vin Diesel movie where it's just his D&D wizard.
Well, that's up to Bree.
Yeah.
That's up to Bree to decide. But Bridget,
I gotta skim through the cast.
Bridget, where can people find you?
I stream, and sometimes Jay and Bree can be heard in the background. And
I've been known to guest properly sometimes, even.
And Evie is frequently on. I stream all sorts of weird things at twitch.tv/sasquatchless, and I also am on Blue Sky if you are so into hot crust buns.
I see.
Hell yeah.
You can find me on social media, but I will not tell you where to find me. You have to find me yourself. However,
turlet.
I will tell you where to find the podcast. Put it on the list at bsky.social, put it on the list at neocities.org, Y City Productions on youtube.com. You can find us anywhere major podcasts are sold. Leave comments, subscribe, like, share us with your friends. Spread us around like the plague of olden days.
Yeah.
But share us. We're a good time. But
I mean, you're listening to us, and
day.
you're cool, so you know.
or the plague of modern day too. Yes.
We've had some plagues.
Yeah. But until then, the podcast is over. Everyone go home. Bye.
Bow, 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 bow.